ready to get back into our Father's Word here at the chapel, the law, the book of Numbers, the fourth book of Moses. And we have going on, as we left off in our last lecture, we're going to pick it up today, chapter 2, verse 14, if you care to be opening your Bible there. And we have the establishment of the camps of Israel, which you can think of as the four divisions of the military. And where we left off, we had established the first camp of Judah, being joined with the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun, and then we started to develop the camp of Reuben. Reuben would be joined by Simeon and Gad. And everything in this now, remember, it wasn't Moses just saying, okay, we're going to do it this, and that way. These were God's instructions to Moses and Aaron, and this is how he expected the nation to be established, and it was all by his design, organized and disciplined, if they had done things God's way. And things are rocking along pretty good as we get into the second chapter of Numbers. Let's ask that word of wisdom in Yeshua's name. Father, we ask you to open eyes, open ears this day. We're going to pick it up today, chapter 2, verse 14, and continuing in building the camp of Reuben. Then the tribe of Gad, and the captain of the sons of Gad shall be Eliasaph, the son of Reuel called Deuel in chapter 1, verse 14, and he'll be called Deuel again in chapter 10, verse 20. The letter R, Resh, and the letter D, Delith, in the Hebrew language are easily confused, and this is thought to be a copyist error here. But Gad was to encamp, remember the tabernacle would be in the center, which contained, after all, the Ark of the Covenant, which was the throne of God, if you will, while he was on earth. And this, the southwest corner between Manasseh and Reuben, verse 15. And his host, or his army, and those that were numbered of them, were 40,650. And Gad, the sign in the zodiac, if you will, and I'm talking astronomy, not astrology, but the sign of Gad was Aries, and was probably a ram or a lamb on the flag that represented the tribe of Gad. But I'll remind you once again, though, when they went to war, they were under the standard of Gad, Gad being the major tribe in that particular camp or division. So Gad and Simeon would have been under the sign of Reuben, which was the man. Verse 16. All that were numbered in the camp of Reuben were in 100,000 and 50 and 1,000, 151,450, this being the cumulative armies of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, throughout their armies, and they shall set forth in the second rank. And when we get to chapter 10, verse 18, we'll see this order as God gives the command to move out from Mount Sinai. In chapter 10, verse 10, is the end of the habitation or the encampment of Israel out at Sinai. So when we get there, we'll see first, well, and actually not Judah, but who will move out first? Well, it'll be the Lord himself, as the Ark of the Covenant will always lead the way. God said, I'll lead you into the promised land. I'll go before you. And when that cloud, when it was time to move out, the cloud ascended and led Israel to the next place of encampment. When the cloud came down, Israel, Moses, and Aaron knew that that was where God said to encamp. So, and the order would be, as they departed the Ark of the Covenant, then the host of Judah, the armies of Judah, which included Zebulun and Issachar, then the trumpets would sound by the priest, time for Reuben to move out along with Simeon and Gad, and then we're going to see that next it would be the Levites and the tabernacle, the remainder part of the tabernacle that would be in the middle as they move out. Verse 17, then the tabernacle of the congregation shall set forward with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp. Two divisions of the military, Judah and Reuben, followed by the Levites and the tabernacle. As they encamp, so shall they set forward every man in his place by their standards. And the sign of Levi being Libra, and the ancient, actually, emblem of the tribe of Levi was none other than the altar. Verse 18, on the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim. Here we have the third camp or division of the military, according to their armies. And the captain of the sons of Ephraim shall be Elishama, the son of Ammihud. And this on the west side, in the center, the west side of the tabernacle as they encamped. Ephraim being Taurus, the sign of that being the ox, and Ephraim the younger brother of the two, Manasseh being the older, but according to the blessings of Jacob in Genesis chapter 48, the older brother would always serve the younger. Manasseh would become great, but Ephraim would always be greater, the blessing of Jacob on Ephraim. Verse 19, and his host, that's referring to Ephraim's army, and those that were numbered of them were 40,500. Ephraim, again, the sign being the ox. Verse 20, and by him shall be the tribe of Manasseh, his own brother in ancient times. And the captain of the children of Manasseh shall be Gamaliel, the son of Pedazur. Then Manasseh's place of encampment with the tabernacle in the center would be on the southwest corner between Gad and Ephraim. And his host and those that were numbered of them were 32,200. Manasseh also the sign of Taurus, and the flag would be that of the ox, or a bull, if you will. A bull ox, if you will. 22. Then the tribe of Benjamin, and the captain of the sons of Benjamin shall be Abidan, the son of Gideoni, and this on the northwest corner between Asher and Ephraim. And his host and those that were numbered of them were 35,400. And the sign of Benjamin, Gemini on the zodiac. There it's thought that their flag possibly the twins. 24. All that were numbered of the camp of Ephraim were 100,000 and 8,000 and 100 throughout their armies. 108,100, the smallest of the camps by a considerable number. And they shall go forward in the third rank, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, all in one form or another descendants of Rachel, Ephraim and Manasseh being grandsons of Rachel. Benjamin, of course, his mother was Rachel. Now, you noticed I said the smallest number by far. That would change in the centuries to follow, because soon after the time of Solomon, the 10 tribes to the north were headed by Ephraim, because Ephraim was the largest of the northern tribes. So small at this time, but would gain numbers as the centuries rolled along. And now the fourth camp, 25, the standard of the camp of Dan shall be on the north side by their armies. And the captain of the children of Dan shall be Ahiezer, the son of Amminashaddai. And when we say the captain, you could think of this as the prince, if you will, of the tribe. And remember, these are the same princes, the heads of these tribes were selected by God himself, named by God himself in chapter 1 to assist Moses and Aaron in this first numbering, actually the second numbering God commanded, the first numbering here in the book of Numbers. Dan on the north center, and sometimes it's helpful for us to visualize, or it's helpful to me, I know, to be able to look at something and lay it out on paper. If you have companion Bible, you're fortunate toward the end of the second chapter of Numbers, you'll find a diagram showing the location of these tribes that are mentioned here in relation to the tabernacle at the places of encampment. And that might be helpful for you to take a look at that in your side studies. Now, the book of Dan, the tribe of Dan, I should say, we have the sign of it being the standard, the eagle. And Dan, the eagle, by the way, replaced the serpent, which was the sign of Dan in chapter 49, verse 17. So interesting to note that. So we've got Judah, the lion, on the east of God's throne. We have Ephraim, the ox, or the calf, if you will, on the west of the tabernacle. Reuben, the sign of that, the man, on the south of the tabernacle. And now Dan, the sign of which the standard was the eagle, on the north side of the tabernacle. And Dan being the last to set forth as Israel would move from place to, or I should say, yeah, that's correct, Dan would be the last, following Judah, then Reuben, then Ephraim, followed by the Levites, actually, followed by Ephraim, and then Dan and his host bringing up the rear. Which you might think, well, that would be disgraceful to be the armies of Israel, to protect them, being the last ones to go forward as they move forward. That's not the case. Keep in mind that we're talking about elderly people, we're talking about women and children, their herds, all of this. Everything that they own, they're moving along with them as they go. And that would be a slow go, is my point. And therefore, it would be very important that you had good protection at the rear of this troop, because your enemies, a lot of them, would be overcoming you with speed. So not by any means a cut to the tribe of Dan to have their armies be the last to move out. Verse 26, and his host, or the armies of those that were numbered of them, were 62,700. Dan, again, Scorpio being the zodiac sign, and the eagle being the standard. 27, and those that encamp by him shall be the tribe of Asher, and the captain of the children of Asher shall be Pagiel, the son of Ochran. This on the northwest corner between Benjamin and Dan, the place of encampment. 28, and his host and those that were numbered of them were 41,500. The sign of Asher, the zodiac Sagittarius. The flag would be the design of an archer. 29. Then the tribe of Naphtali, and the captain of the children of Naphtali shall be Ahira, the son of Enan. This on the northeast corner between Issachar and Dan. 30, and his host and those that were numbered of them were 53,400. Naphtali, the sign on the zodiac Capricornus, and the flag would have been the goat. 31, all they, and I'll mention Appendix 12 in your companion Bible if you are not comfortable with the discussion of the zodiac in relation to God. God put the stars in the heavens for signs and seasons. Check out that Appendix 12 in your companion Bible. And I'm sorry I began 31 verse 31, and then have that thought. We'll go back and start 31. All they that were numbered in the camp of Dan were 100,050 and 7,600. They shall go hindmost with their standards. Again, bringing up the rear. And the total army of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali, 157,600. Verse 32, these are those which were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers. All those that were numbered of the camps throughout their host were 600,000 and 3,550. 603,550. And I mentioned at the beginning of this chapter that Ezekiel, the prophet, witnessed the throne of God coming to earth and protected by those four living creatures. And at this time, if you would, turn with me to Revelation chapter 4. I want to cover a couple of verses because Ezekiel wasn't the only one to get a peek at the throne of God. And I know many of you someday will get to view the throne of God. I look forward to that day. But John, in chapter 4 of Revelation, I'm going to pick this up. I think you'll have it on your monitor. Chapter 4 of Revelation, what we have there is John is taken in the Spirit to the throne of God. And this is what he sees as he reports in verse 6. And before the throne there was a sea of glass. This is the throne of God we're talking about. A sea of glass like unto crystal. Glass and crystal always a sign of purity. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. Notice they are surrounding the throne of God. Just as the tribes of Israel, the four majors, Judah, Reuben, Dan, and Ephraim, were spotted in the four corners around the throne of God as it appeared on the earth in the Ark of the Covenant. So, and what were their faces like? Verse 7. And the first beast was like a lion. Remember what the flag of Judah was? On the east side of the temple, we have Judah, the lion, and the second beast like a calf. Here we have a young ox, the sign of Ephraim, on the west side of the throne. And the third beast had a face as a man, Reuben, on the south side of the throne of God. And the fourth beast was like a flying eagle, the sign of the tribe of Dan, which was assigned to the north side of the temple. So we have the throne of God in Ezekiel coming to earth. We have John taken in the Spirit to God's throne in heaven in the future. And we see this just like God set it up on earth with the tribes of Israel surrounding the tabernacle with these different signs and faces. I think those of you who do get to witness the throne of God at some point in the future are going to see something that resembles this, of the man, the sign of the lion of Judah, the man of Reuben, the calf or ox of Ephraim, and the eagle of Dan, protecting the throne of God. Verse 8, and the four beasts had each of them 6 wings about them, and they were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. God the Almighty forever and forevermore as well. So, is that exactly the way it's going to be? No, it's not stated as such, but I have a feeling, based on our study here in the book of Numbers to this point, and based on not just one, but 2 witnesses, the first by Ezekiel, the second by John in the book of Revelation, that this is going to be how it is in the eternity as well. So 603,550 battle-ready troops. Are they brave soldiers? Well, unfortunately, when we get to chapters 13 and 14, we're going to see that not all of them were all that brave. Interesting maybe to note the divisions, the total number of the divisions. Judah, a total of 186,400, by far the largest troop. Reuben, the total armies, 151,450. Ephraim, 108,100, by far the smallest camp. And Dan, the 4th division of the military, 157,600. And so I don't confuse you when I mention that tribe. You've got to keep in mind that doesn't include just Judah, for example. That includes Judah, Naphtali, and Zebulun, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Naphtali, of course, we just read in the tribe or the camp of Dan. And where did we get to? Let's go with verse 33. But the Levites were not numbered among the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. And we'll see why as we get into chapter 3 and 4. I'll save that for then. But they most certainly, the Levites, were a part of God's army as well, a spiritual army, if you will. 34. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So far, so good. Unfortunately, it won't continue. It usually doesn't when man is concerned, and I don't mean to belittle the children of Israel for not following God's instructions. We don't do a very good job of it today either. So they pitched by their standards, and so they set forward, every one after their families, according to the house of their fathers. And in chapter 3, we're going to have the Levites numbered or mustered. Actually, we're going to have 2 counts of the Levites. In chapter 3, we'll see that the Levites were numbered from the age of 1 month old and upward. In chapter 4, we'll see that they're numbered from the age of 30 to 50. Now, the reason for the numbering of 1 month old and upward is that God is about to take the Levites to serve at His tabernacle as opposed to the firstborn males of Israel. Because in Exodus, chapter 11, 12, and 13, chapter 11, we have the death angel passing over and killing the firstborn of Egypt. Man, woman, animal, those from Pharaoh all the way to those in prison, and to the animals in the field. The firstborn died as that death angel passed over. God redeemed, or I should say He claimed at that time, Exodus chapter 13, I think, covers this very well, but He claimed the firstborn male of the children of Israel at that time to serve in His sanctuary. Now, at the age of 1 month old, the parents had a choice. They could either dedicate the child to the service of the temple, in which case they would leave the child at the tabernacle, or they could redeem the child for 5 shekels of silver, that being the amount that a male child was to be redeemed at, as established in the book of Leviticus. So with that, let's get on with the numbering of the Levites, chapter 3. These are the generations, or the pedigree, the family, if you will, descendants of Aaron and Moses in the day that the Lord spake with Moses in Mount Sinai. And here Moses and Aaron, I think, are put for all of the Levites, as they had been raised up at this time as spiritual leaders. Moses as the leader of the nation, and Aaron as the high priest to represent the Levites. And they were, actually, Moses and Aaron were of the tribe of Levi, the Kohathites, the family. Verse 3, or 2, and these are the names of the sons of Aaron. Nadab, which means liberal, the firstborn, and Abihu, meaning Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Now, you may recall, or I should say in chapter 10 of Leviticus, you may recall what happened with Nadab and Abihu, the older sons of Aaron. And in chapter 9 of Leviticus and 8, we had the consecration of the priests. And in chapter 9, they laid out the offering on the altar. And I mean, bam! Fire came down from heaven and consumed the offering. And I mean, the Levites and the people of Israel were celebrating and having a big time with all of this that was taking place. And then what happened in chapter 10 of Leviticus? Well, Nadab and Abihu, in their rush to make up their own religion, and that's what Leviticus was all about, you see, was God telling the people, this is how you will worship me. And what happened, Nadab and Abihu got to playing church. I think they got caught up in the moment of being consecrated as priests, and they went and grabbed some strange fire. I think probably camel chips, fire off the cook stove, and ran and pulled it in the censers to worship God with it rather than fire from the altar. And God struck them dead. I mean, deader than a doornail right there. And Aaron started to complain about it and mourn. And Moses said, don't you dare, either you or your sons, mourn what happened to Nadab and Abihu, or you're next. And that probably would have been the case. But the priesthood is going to rest with Eleazar and Ithamar due to that. Verse 3, these are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priest, which were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest office. And again, that recorded in Leviticus chapter 8 and 9. 4, and Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest office in the sight of Aaron their father. And this last phrase, in the sight of Aaron their father, meaning that they were the only other consecrated priest during the life of Aaron, is what that particular phrase means. 5, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 6, bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister unto him. And the children of Moses, by the way, were of Moses' wife Zipporah. His sons' names, the sons of Moses, were Gershom and Eleazar, which is recorded in Exodus chapter 2, verse 22, and also Exodus chapter 18, verse 3 and 4. Verse 7, and they shall keep his charge, and the charge of the whole congregation, before the tabernacle of the congregation, to do the service of the tabernacle. A lot of work to be done in and around the tabernacle, and the work is about to be assigned out as they number the Levites. Verse 8, and they, the Levites, shall all be, shall keep all the instruments, this being the vessels and the furniture, of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the charge of the children of Israel to do the service of the tabernacle, everything binding the Levites to the service of the tabernacle. Verse 9, and thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. And this word given here, and actually this wholly given, is emphatic. In the Hebrew, it's actually given. If you go back to the manuscripts, and for emphasis twice. Now, The word given in the Hebrew language is Nethinim, now not to be confused with the Nethinim of Joshua chapter 9, verse 27, where the Gideonites, some people who were conquered by Israel, were given to the Levites to cut wood and haul water. Those particular given Nethinim worked their way in eventually over the years to the point that when Ezra was coming back from Babylon to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, he took count of how many priests did he actually have. And he looked around, and they had no priest. All he had was Nethinim. And what happened was the priests got so lazy, and the Nethinim, they started out cutting wood and hauling water all right, but it got to where they liked the looks of those religious robes. And more they took over the responsibilities of the priest, which evidently the priests were lazy enough to allow them to do, to the point they basically took over the priesthood. I'm sure that didn't please God at all. Verse 10, and thou shalt appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall wait on their priest office, and the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. In other words, someone who wasn't of the tribe of Levi, or in some cases wasn't a priest of Aaron, if you will, they would be put to death by God. More on that as we get to the assignments of the various Levites over the next couple of chapters. Verse 11, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, now verse 11 through 51, we're going to see the Levites substituted for the firstborn of Israel in the service of the tabernacle. Verse 12, and I, and this is the Lord speaking, behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of all the firstborn that openeth the matrix. This matrix in the Hebrew is rechem, and it is the womb. Among the children of Israel, therefore the Levites shall be mine, God claiming them to do the service of the tabernacle. And why did God choose? Well, let me back up. Who chose them? God chose them. It wasn't Moses and Aaron saying, oh, those are our brothers, Levites, we'll let them serve in the temple. It happened that in Exodus chapter 32, verse 26, you'll find Moses went up on Mount Sinai to receive the law. When he came down, he found Aaron, his own brother, and the people of Israel took all their gold, or much of their gold, and made a golden calf to be their god. Moses was furious, and you can't blame him after what he had done, Moses himself, and God had done, more importantly, to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. And he asked the people of Israel, Moses did, who will stand with me this day as with Yahweh as our God? And the tribe of Levi came directly behind Moses. And not only did they stand with Moses, they picked up their weapons and destroyed 24,000 that day of the idol worshipers, those who were worshiping the golden calves. That's why God chose the Levites, because they were zealous to worship and serve Him. And it wasn't because He liked them any better or anything else. It's because of their actions. They stood with the Lord. Much like the elect stood with the Lord in the first earth age, much like the elect will stand for the true Jesus Christ in this time when the false one appears as Antichrist.